G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 11th of August 2026. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cain, Power Games, Into the Osman, and the Erotic Tales from the Empire. All my book links are in the link tree along with all my social media links. Now, as the war continues, I'll continue to bring you news from both sides of the conflict. And as we look at the map, it is a sea of red. And Russia continues its grinding operations. It is currently primarily focused on grinding in the Eastern Donetsk region, particularly claiming the capture of a few small towns. The Russians have opened up artillery barrages in Sumy, and as I said, they're opening up a new front in Sumy yesterday. The artillery is continuing today with a record volume of artillery and glide bombs, seeking to exploit the gaps in Ukrainians' air defense capabilities. Right? Ukraine is rushing to fill these gaps, particularly with interceptor drones from Poland, Israel, South Korea, Taiwan, and other countries. Ukraine is building up a drone supply network. Now, previously, Ukraine has banned export of its drones, but now that it needs to double its drone production, it needs partners, and this is one of the first partnerships is with Poland for ground drones. I think this is with Trident Industries. Now, Trident is linked to the Zelensky government, as with most defense industries in Ukraine. Now, when let me guess, Der Spiegel and I forget is it Le Monde in France? Are all pro-Russian sources, you know. So when they expose corruption in Ukraine, it's Russian propaganda. And you'll have orcs who just cannot. I've been accused of being pro-Russian. Today I've been accused of being both pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian. Now, a lot of Africans are pro-Russian, and they are supporting Russia's military efforts. Now, I've questioned both of these orcs, and they could not answer me what lies I told and where the propaganda lies, and how come I got two different people telling me two different things. No, there are people who are so weak, so insecure, that if I bring them bad news like, hey, Russia's just opened up a new front in Sumy, that's somehow Russian propaganda. It's on the map. It's on the Ukrainian map. But because it's not in his Finnish news, a Finnish fucking retard goes off at me on Facebook. What a surprise. And then I have another one from Africa go off at me without even calling me a liar, spelled L-A-E-R. Yeah, great one. I'm a bad speller, so I shouldn't make fun of his spelling. But still, yeah, you called me a liar, and I asked him, where's the lie? And he didn't respond. So this is the shit I have to put up with daily from low IQ people who just are so weak and so insecure they can't handle bad news. This is war every day. Every article is bad news. It's always bad news for someone. A car accident. Well, it's bad news for the people in it. Bombing of Donetsk. The bombing artillery in Sumy. That's bad news for the people of Sumy. Heck, so the Kursk invasion was bad news for the people in Kursk. There is no good news. If you're coming here looking for good news, my God, what's wrong with you? Are you a psychopath? Now, a recent report from the Institute of the Study of War has said Russia is pivoting to positional warfare. Now, this is a game of chess. So instead of rapid mechanized warfare or what I think Americans call spearhead attacks, Russia remains optimized for a slow grinding war using frontline pressure. Now, frontline pressure, this is basically another word for trench and artillery warfare. You have series of networks, and you basically grind the other, you degrade or grind the enemy's position, and they have to fall back. And your goal now is to capture those trenches. Then your goal becomes to hold those trenches. Now, in a recent article of Ukrainian soldiers, they're not allowed to move more than 300 meters without permission. They can't go forward without permission. They cannot go more than 300 meters from their trench without permission. And they're geotagged. They are tracked. Battlefield positions are tracked, reported in daily. You know what this tells me? And it's not just Ukraine. I think the Russians are doing the same. They are playing tactical warfare using AI right now, both sides. And that war game scenarios are playing out. And as soon as one glitch in the matrix occurs, whether it be a breakdown, supply chain, an hour late, whatever it is, when there's an opening, they launch. Because let's face it, right? I told you, flight time, right? With your drones, these long-range drones, they have a flight time of 3 to 5 hours. You really think an aircraft flies in a straight line across Russia for 3.5 hours without anyone seeing it to hit a target? No. These deep strikes into Russia, they're being aided, right? Now, Russia has to figure out how it's going to cast its net. It has to use AI. They have to figure out the launch points and everything. And in a sea of light, which often you have from space, and I think yesterday you said the view from space, in how they're watching the drones. It is a sea of light, and there's smoke, and there's all sorts of things going on. And these huge bombardments, particularly aerial missile strikes against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure, are guided in real time. And while Ukraine is dealing with ongoing shortage of Patriot air defense systems, Lockheed Martin and other companies across Europe are working to get infrastructure up and running to build these and to build them cheaper. Because to intercept they know how to intercept Russian missiles. They're not intercepting huge Russian missiles. They're calibrating the interceptors for basically the situation they're in, and they're working now how to deploy them to maximize their effect. So every step of this war is going at least once through an AI process. Now, how these AIs operate is it goes through military warfare school. It goes through the same doctrinal process as a tactical line officer of the various branches. Basically, it's fed books. It creates tokens. And then you create your inputs. Those create tokens. And then the tokens are matched. And then they create visual maps and have the AI study and do pattern recognitions on those visual maps to actually check. And the most simplest prompt is find difference between A and B. So that's what they're right now doing. They have their maps, they have their historical battles, how they played out, they have how the battlefield has played out currently, and they're looking for the difference. And range is playing a role in this. Deep strikes and retaliatory strikes with cross-border aerial warfare, increasingly drone strikes are launched from further and further back. Now, this is because of retaliatory strikes. Anything within 70 kilometers of the battlefield is hittable from long-range rocket artillery. And it's harder to detect because they are fired like traditional artillery, but they use a rocket to extend the range, to basically get it out. And then once the rocket's exhausted, then it just continues like a normal rocket shell. Now, Allied support on both sides, while Ukraine is building its networks across Europe and Asia, Russia is doing the same in Africa, Central Eurasia, across Asia, and trying to reach to Brazil. And so far, BRICS is very shaky. South Africa was sending equipment, then basically South Africa is a basket case and unable to produce anything of note or worth to make even a difference for one day for Russia, in Ukraine. Now, rather than focused on rapid territorial gains, Russia has, like I said, they've intensified. They have tripled their ballistic missile launches since April 2026. So this has exceeded both delivery and production of interceptors. Though, of course, according to the Institute for Study of War, Russia's been able to increase its zircon and onks productions by 10 and 20% respectively. Russia is utilizing new technologies rather than drawing down strategic stockpiles. So all the current missiles that have been launched were produced in the last 6 months. So this buys into the assessments and information from other open intelligence sources that Russia is stockpiling between 9,000 to 15,000 missiles, and every month they produce a really, really big one. They are building towards strategic isolation. So is Iran. So is China. Now, strategic isolation, basically, you become their enemy, they slowly cut you off from their economy. Doesn't matter how many sanctions you have on them and what, right? If they are isolated, they go, right, what do we need the most? What is most advantageous to us? Russia is producing LCD screens for the first time. Russia is producing mobile phones. They have before. They've off and on, but now they have to. China is doing the same. Now, China dominated for a while the mobile phone market. Huawei and others are falling behind. Even in Russia, they don't want Chinese phones. But China is rethinking its mobile phone strategy and is focused on a new company, Huawei is slowly dying. It won't die. It'll remain the backbone of Chinese telecommunications. But I think on the mobile phone front, they are going with a new phone, and you'll see it soon. They'll flood the market with it. It's going to be like the little Google phone. It's going to be pink, white, yellow, and other neon colors. I think its name actually translates from neon. I'm not sure. Zhao Li or Zhao Zhu or Zhao La. It's one of a dozen, but I think it stands out. And for whatever reason, whenever market-driven forces seem to take hold in China, the Chinese government rides that wave for 3 to 6 months and then abandons it. Now, why is this important? Because I think, in reality, they're too small, they're too convenient, I believe they're pocket palms, and that they're going to produce a standard black model that will be mobile communications within the BRICS network, which means Russian military, Chinese military, all start to standardize equipment. And that means preparing for joint ground operations. You see almost everything in Russia, China, and for now Iran is dual purpose. Nothing they produce in mass is really civilian. It has a civilian model. It has but these are dual-use technologies. So motorcycle helmets become military helmets. But, yeah, eventually they stop making civilian helmets, and they're just all, yeah. So right now, Russia's heavily reliant on its ballistic missile strikes to hamper Ukrainian ground operations. And Ukraine is relying on deep strikes to try and cut Russian production, as well as, admittedly, just striking Tartazan to disrupt fuel supplies. And this risks bringing Azerbaijan and other countries into the war, except they're pissed at Iran and pissed at Russia and Iran, which is very convenient because it started with a Ukraine strike on an Iranian ship. And now, why would Iran risk a regional war against themselves? Because Azerbaijan was considering joining Turkey and the others. And I think Russia gave the go-ahead for a single strike on a target that would directly hurt the Azerbaijani government and then along would come a third party and whisper in the ears and say, you know, if you lose that plant, you fall behind in oil productions, you'd lose, your bonus or whatever it is. And so, or corrupt payments, because let's face it, with no accountability to anyone, corrupt payments are much easier than they are in the West. Here we call it lobbying, right? We have to buy them lunch, and by lunch I mean, why does lunch cost $3,000? Well, it was served by a lady in a bikini, and by bikini I mean nothing. So, yes. So, trust me when I say it is coming closer to a stalemate more than you realize. And a stalemate is what Ukraine should hope for. A 3 to 6 month stalemate will affect the Russian elections. And we'll get to the Russian elections shortly. But like I said, now, as someone impolitely pointed out, Sumy is not a new front. Yes, you're right. They opened up a new section of the front and have taken territories. And there you can see they've opened up more. Now, while search engine results keep telling you, Russia's focused on Donetsk, yeah, but they have opened up, and they could only do this if Zelensky's warning about North Koreans. Well, my guess is those North Koreans are helping in other areas with security to enable Russia to move personnel into these areas. But they do have North Koreans working their borders and border patrols, and Russia having the largest border with one of the most problematic. Now, a lot of smugglers originate from Russia, particularly in the central highlands regions, where they can get good lift and travel very far gliding before, and are most likely to not be bothered on their way out. And they load up with cigarettes. It's usually the trouble is coming back with the money. Cigarettes are now one of the most smuggled items in the world, and Russia, well, actually northern China, is the cheapest producer of cigarettes. 10 cents. Yeah, Chinese are complaining about the price of cigarettes. Well, the price of cigarettes in China, 10 cents. They get $1 in Indonesia. They get $10 a packet in Australia. These are Russian cigarettes, and I believe they're packs of 10. They're only small packs. And I believe another common commodity is the $100 chop bags. Now, the $100 chop bags is your standard tobacco bag, but it's already chopped up, ready to go for your rollies. And those are showing up all over the world as well. They're definitely, it's definitely too big an operation to be, the cartel to operate so freely would definitely have money flowing to the Russian government. And I mean cash. I mean the cash they desperately need. Now, Austria shut down an electronics company yesterday, claiming they were selling technologies being smuggled to Russia through transfers in the Baltic. I find it rather complex and complicated explanation. To be realistic, the simplest answer is usually more truthful. If they go into complicated, and then, yeah, Russia's smuggling routes are going to be complicated, but they're not. To move tons of heavy equipment, you need a third-party country to somehow get goods up to the coastline here on the ships that go all the way out here, right? All the way up here, and come around and somehow drop containers off all the way here and dock and come all the way around. And then someone has to come out unseen and round up all the floating containers. And there's a possibility they do that. But with the amount of drones they've got, the amount of drones in that operating, and the thousands of ships, they got a drone for every ship now. They can monitor every ship in real time if they wanted to. How do you think they just don't want you to know the government doesn't want you to know how capable they are. You really think all those data centers are for your nudie pics? No, those days of the internet being dominated by nudie pics is gone. It's now data. on you that's dominating the storage and cloud capacities of the internet. So we have a little bit of activity compared to Sumni. Like I said, they've hit glide bombs on Kharkiv, Dnipro. They've attacked the Ukrainian positions in Zaporozhye, out here in Ukrainian. Another Ukrainian pilot ejected with the standard protocol. They refuse to be shot down when confronted by Russian aircraft. If they are unable to escape, they refuse to be shot down. They eject. So MiG-31s are getting close to the Russia. MiG-31s are not getting close to the Ukrainian coast. It's Su-30s. Now, with no reports, there's no idea whether or not, but if MiG-31s are launching missiles at Kiev, they usually use the Earth rotation. They do not launch north. The launches north are usually for up over here because they are ballistic. So they can travel north with a slow twist. See, flight times depend on speed of Earth rotation, wind direction, and the fuel load. Right, the fuel load has to be near precise because, you've got a short flight. Why fill the tanks when it's not going all the way? If you're firing a fire. So they need that fuel. That fuel is expensive to produce. So they're not going to burn half the fuel. They're not going to fill the tank if only half of it's going to be burnt. The other half explodes and does negligible contribution to the explosion. Now, there are some missiles that in particularly, I said it before, Zircon, I think, where 150 kilograms, so 100 kilograms of fuel can make the difference to weight for penetration. But there ain't that many bunkers they're penetrating either. So when you look around the battlefield, there's Russians have lost ground in Kupiansk, sort of. They lost a little bit of ground, but they've gained a lot. Okay? So they lost a little bit in, up in here, but they gained along here. And they've gained here. So it's a trade-off. So now we have fighting in the center of Kupiansk. Well, central, which is Volozhny and Kupiansk, the suburb of Kupiansk. And then you got Canavia, Kupiansk. So the center part of Kupiansk, even though it's here, so all of this, parts of which are completely devastated, are being fought over yet again in the same way they fought over it previously. It's almost as if both sides are taking their marching orders from AIs who are responding to the previous patterns established by the said same AIs, and the movements of soldiers at some point are being repeated over and over again. But Russia's made advances here as well. Not much going on in the Lyman area. The grinding continues. Lots of loud noises bit of a breakthrough, nothing closer to the bridge. That's about it. This is very quiet front because pretty much everything was basically, this is a mess. The Ukrainians can't move without, if they move, the Russians attack them. If they don't move, the Russians don't attack them. But then they've got the Russians at their back. But for now, the Russians have advanced only a little bit and then stopped again. Fighting, Ukraine's lost ground in Koshnikovia. Russia's gained territory into Zhukovnia and we've closed off the gap here. They've made a huge advance. And they've made some advances already in Koshnikovia, clearing out areas. There's the FSB operating in this area have made arrests. It's usually summary field executions. An arrest means they've captured someone of high value. If you ever hear of an arrest, it's a high value target. If you don't hear about it, just hear there's been an FSB operation, it's an execution. The FSB operating in Ukraine have a license to kill. And the Ukrainian are concentrated in the suburbs of Koshnikovia, but there are throughout the power, there's the bridge, it is the power centre and industrial park and parts of the other suburbs. This area here, I think, is just trenches. There's also trenches here. And well, I think once this falls, all of this is gone. The Ukrainians have no longer a place to fall back and no supply lines, and they'll just go feral. Well, if they haven't gone already. They're not going to surrender. That's why I said if there are FSB operations in the area. Sniffer dogs, bomb disposal units, mine clearing, but also anti-infiltration operations, which is basically code for a sniper waits for you to come out of your rabbit hole and then they shoot your head. There's no, if they see a high-value target, it's different. They'll crash tackle them. But most of the time, it's 12.7 millimeter, 12.7 millimeter hello. The gap here is closing. Again, that puts hundreds of Ukrainians, possibly thousands. Estimated how many troops there. Some give it as little as 50. Some say it's as high as 800. If they're holding back a few thousand Russians, that's because no one's going to rush a sniper's nest. It usually does. It's probably one man per Russian squad, just holding them back with an automated rifle. I mean, two machine gunners can hold back sometimes for weeks an entire squads. If they can't see where they are firing from, and if they're able to continue to move about, it's just mortar fire, hit and miss, until they are rooted out. And the Ukrainians thought, hey, we keep the Russians busy here, they're not going to advance on. Oh, wait, they have advanced on Zhukovia. Oh, and they've advanced in other areas as well. So it comes down to you're wasting manpower that could have been on the front lines contributing to stopping the Russian advance elsewhere. But they don't think laterally. They think linearly. That's why this entire war is so getting so stale and predictable. Launch smoke. Launch. barrage. Roll up a tank at this precise location. Fire at this angle, this many shells. Return to station. There's such predictable, dry orders. They are 99% certain it's AI, which is 99% certain why they're targeting power stations to see which buildings don't go out. And then they hit those buildings that don't go out. Yeah, distributed node processing. You're not going to build a big AI in one place and then have Russia blow it up. No. You're going to have thousands of little boxes all over the place sitting in offices humming away, which is why I believe all those new buildings had air conditioners. When you look across Ukraine, you go, why are buildings that are going to be negative 40 in the winter got air conditioners? Shouldn't you have heaters? Why would a building need so many air conditioners? It's an AI data center that looks like a hotel. Think about your requirements. So, nothing really. Oh, well, they've straightened the line. So, a little bit of territory here and there, but nothing of significance has fallen in this area as well. No, nothing has changed here. As we go around, only small jut. But the big one, look at that. As I said, they're racing Donsk from across the river. Did I not say that now for over a week? While they slowly creep up here by trench hopping. Most of the time it's trench hopping. Okay, standard 6-man squad will crawl out in the middle of the night, set up overwatch on the usually the highest side of the cover. So when the Ukrainians come out of their foxholes, they are looking straight into the sun when the crack goes off. And that usually, it's not to shoot them, right? It's the fire on it's the buzz of the landmine that they've put a standard detonator on, and by the time they realised that strange crack noise was the pin going, whee, I'm free, poof. So the hand grenade, so the fuse is now crackling away, and they've got 3 seconds to get out of the foxhole or try to. Have you ever tried to rip packing tape? It never ends good. And the thing is, if you rip the packing tape off, they've removed the pressure cap, which means the landmine goes pop anyway. So, but either way, you are And if you think you're going to pick it up, pick up and throw a 3 kilogram in 3 seconds, go ahead. Go ahead. You are most likely, forgetting the fact it took 2 seconds to fall. So that's what they do. Day in, day out, they blow Ukrainians up in their trenches and then advance. So why don't they do that everywhere? Because they are monitoring everything. The Russians are finding it harder and harder to sneak up on the Ukrainian lines. It's taking longer to infiltrate the Ukrainian positions because they are electronic warfare on levels that are beyond the available technologies of you and I the so-called electronic borders are in play across them, and the Russians have infiltrated well into the outskirts of Omsk, and they're making cross here to cut this off. And the rest is Russia attacking the same ports. That was yesterday. That was yesterday. What's here today? Provocations about, complaining about, Tatarstan is complaining that they want to enter the war and get revenge on Ukraine for attacking their oil facility. Like I said, Ukraine is provoking World War III. Now, Empire of Elves, the official, not suitable for work artbook, Volume 1, The Empress Sora. Now, in other videos, I've been able to show you some artwork in addition of Sora in red underwear, but the YouTubes, the YouTubes. Now, like I said, Lockheed Martin has been seeking partners. Now, they have a German-Ukrainian partnership, but they don't need more. It's not just enough to have electronics. You need, Rheinmetall is going to be producing the casing. You're going to have a French company, I believe, producing the rocket motors. They are slowly putting everything together to, now each step needs US defense approval, which means a lot of intelligence operations going on in Europe right now to make sure that every step of the way has only good little loyal citizens working on these projects. And it's Europe, so there's not that many good loyal citizens to go around, unfortunately. Now, cut price Patriot missiles. Isn't it amazing the Guardian is complaining about the Guardian, who spent every decade of every day of the Cold War criticizing the West, every day of the Vietnam War sticking it to the man, and protesting every action, US action, but Ukraine, they're puckering up to war like they're the Sun or the Telegraph. Yeah, they're puckering up to the establishment harder than a prostitute on a street corner. Speaking of which, Ukraine, Russia, and China are all reporting a massive uptake in prostitution. At the same time, a massive fall in the rates. Ukraine is seeing they're seeing a double up on war tourism and prostitution and human trafficking, with OnlyFans openly operating warehouse-style. Basically, they have buildings full of booths where half-naked ladies are jiggling for tips on the internet. I'm telling you, why aren't you just going, hey Google, show me some naughties? There's lots of naughty stuff on the internet for free. Why do you pay OnlyFans? I do not understand. I think it's the illusion of control, because they do something that they want the feeling of power you get when you tell someone to do something and they do it. But you're paying them. So you are nothing more than a chump. Because you get no contact and they get your money. I really wish I could talk people out of OnlyFans. Send that scumbag to hell. I don't understand it. Anyhow. All right. Russian bars only oppose... Sorry. Russia bars parties that the only party that opposes the war. Now, they have less than 3% of the vote. Letting them into the election would be, this is a waste of time. Wouldn't make a difference. They have less than 3% of the vote. They haven't won a seat in over a decade. Even the protest vote is going to be around 3% of the Russians aren't going to vote. 3 to 5% aren't going to vote. They'd rather pay the fine, which is rarely enforced in some areas anyway. They'd rather just take the win and not draw attention to the protest vote. A lot of the opposition parties to Putin are going to win all the outer areas. Putin is only popular in the, what do you call it? Is it the Moscow belt? The west, the east. The further east you go, the least popular he is. It declines in the Urals and beyond because they have a different set of priorities, particularly with trade and more pressing problems with illegal migration and crime. Now, as we go around the map, as you saw, Russia's inflicted damage. They claim to have destroyed 85 heavy drones and electronic warfare stations. What is so important about that? Well, these are the deep strike. These are the ones that carry out strikes in Russia, as opposed to the plus the electronic warfare stations. Blowing that up puts holes in Ukrainians' defences. Now, how do they get to them if how do they get to an electronic warfare station? Wired drones. Someone has to sneak up, get within a kilometre or two, and be able to get a drone. It's hard to get them overland, but get a drone to fly up low and pretty much just land on top of its most vulnerable and expensive system to replace with electronic warfare. That is the big pile of copper coils and electronics and thermal regulators at its base, and pretty much launch the antenna to the moon at the same time, because it is a very expensive array of very specific metals that, when turned into a big pile of scrap, as soon as the tension is released on that titanium aluminate, all the wires just go click, and they have to be recycled. You can't fix it, particularly when it's exposed to explosive force. It's going to have all cracks and creaks. It's going to have big holes in it, even if you did get it plug it in. Now, Poland has once again voted no on the current round of benchmarks. I think it's benchmarks, right? EU has a big pile of thick handbooks, and every day someone goes through and says, has Ukraine done this today? Have they done this today? Have they done? And it's long and boring and tedious. And then when it comes to Poland's turn, well, Poland says, have they stopped honouring Nazis? No. Have they banned Nazis? No. Have they denazified, removed Nazi monuments, etc.? No. Have they passed an act of parliament against the Ukrainian insurgency army or its nationalist organizations? No. Do they? That's an automatic fail. So you're going to say that's pro-Russian. Absolutely, that is a pro-Russian thing that Poland has done, but not intentionally. Ukraine has intentionally done a pro-Russian thing and kept itself out of Europe. Because I believe there are those in Ukraine that don't want to be part of Europe. So they put on a Nazi uniform to basically keep Ukraine out of Europe, thinking it could become a logistics hub for China and India to launch into Europe, because it will be at the end of the it'll be in the middle eventually, but for now, it'll be at the end of the transcontinental New Silk Road program of China. But China is in trouble. So, because it's only sitting on $2 trillion. In the past, it was sitting on, last 10 years, they've been able to spend between 3 and 4 trillion on Belt and Road. But because the returns are getting less and less and costing more and more to maintain, particularly its ports in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and plus the bribes, the cost of living's gone up, so the cost of bribery has gone up. And so, particularly with Sri Lanka, the economy keeps going the way they are. The Sri Lankan government will nationalise the port in order to recover port fees that China doesn't and hasn't paid. Same with electricity and other bills. China's racked up bills around the world. They've already lost 13 mines in Africa, allegedly, because some of the operators are still there working under government supervision. So we'll see. So I'm just suggesting that Ukraine is doing this there are those in Ukraine doing this on purpose, and Zelensky's caught between a rock and a hard place. If he pisses off if he pisses off China, where's he going to get half his drone parts from? Yeah, detains a Ukrainian agent. You don't capture a Ukrainian agent in Ukraine unless it's a high-value target. Usually it's a 12.7 millimeter hello, or a 9 millimeter, Russian service 7.62. Yes, they have 7.62 handguns, by the way. Although they do have a 11 millimeter. I'm well aware of the Russian 9 millimeter and 11 millimeter. FSB typically do not use those. They use a smaller pistol that holds, I think it's 3+1 rifle rounds. Because a single rifle round in the head, as opposed to unloading a short burst of 3 9 millimeters or 2 11 millimeters. Yeah, 7.62. You're only going up against one person. You're not getting into a gunfight. You're putting it to his temple and having it bounce around for a little while. Yes. You are just putting a dog to sleep, as they say. Now, if he was a Russian citizen, you commit espionage or terrorism in Russia, you lose all rights. And the Geneva Convention does not cover ununiformed officers. An ununiformed officer can be tortured. Ukraine has lost another valuable asset due to their arrogance and overconfidence. To think, yes, carrying out acts of sabotage against the Russian military, caught red-handed. Now, a device is trying to swap a power bank with one that would go Chinese on him. A sabotage power bank is an amazing weapon. All you have to do is make his power bank, but you just crystallize some of the more, shall we say, reactive components. And as soon as the electrical charge heats up, those reactive components, You are now sitting on a power bank that is explosive. Hydrogen gas will build up and it will explode, and there's no explosive to be detected. It is quite an ingenious, and if you look up Chinese EV fires, you'll know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So if you see this in your face and you're not dead, you're going to wish you were, because they will torture you before they kill you. They will learn everything about you. And you know when I say tickle the balls? Yes, they do it with a car battery attached to some prods that they actually pin into your body. They're alligator clips. They are not polite. They have no scruples. So I can understand why all these people flying Ukrainian flags are very reluctant to go fight for Ukraine, because you may end up declared a mercenary or an ununiformed officer and learn the true meaning of pain. And if you've broken your leg or your arm or fractured your skull, you might actually understand pain. And when I say pain with a capital P, you actually do feel it. And I can sympathise with you. And you actually know what I'm talking about when I say pain with a capital P. But I'm telling you, when it comes to Russia, I think pain in full capitals is the usual intent. And remember, they can put you on life support. So you're going to wish you were James Bond with a suicide pill in your teeth to crush. Though that's why they stun gun you. And yes, just as a welcome warm-up. And they check your teeth, they check your body for pressure pads, they make sure that they keep you naked, because they're usually something concealed in clothes, like pins. It is probably the most unpleasant thing in the world to research what Russia does to spies and dissidents. And I believe they excel beyond. They taught the Vietnamese, they taught the North Koreans, they taught the Chinese. But I still believe it is probably the worst is to be for someone to be captured by, would be to be captured by Russia. Because, see, North Korea, once they've learnt everything, they can't afford to keep you alive. They literally cannot afford to keep you in jail or swap you out. If they can't swap you out, they will kill you within 48 hours. Same with China. They're not going to keep you for long. You never hear any swap outs from China. Rarely do you hear swap outs from China. You hear swap outs all the time from Russia. Why? Russia delights in keeping you alive and miserable and naked in the dark and feeding you half-rotten food and watching you grovel and beg as your teeth, your tongue, your eyes and other soft tissues rot. Yes, it's why you shouldn't eat rotten food. The rot spreads. It's a disease. Rot is a disease. It's a bacterium infection, but it's a disease inducing. And they deliberately, right? They can cure it up to a certain point, and they deliberately tell you everything, knowing it will drive you mad. And they make you betray everyone and everything before they give you that injection. And even then, you're going to live a rotten, miserable life, and you're not going to want to go back. You know, most people released from Russian prisons live within a distance of that prison. They are so institutionalized They are destroyed. So, yes, I know what Russia's like. I am sick and tired of people who make fucking assumptions every day based on a single headline. It's like, you must be the most brain-dead, rotten, insecure person in the world. You remind me of a communist. Always assuming the worst, always wanting harm, always wanting misery on others. That's why I don't like them. That's why I don't like Ukraine. They have that same rotten mindset. They're not cured of anything. They're just another parasite state, a weak, insecure state that has put its hands in someone's pocket to stay warm for one more day. They are the people who lined up to put others in the boxcars so they don't get forced in. I'll do it for you. You can just go rest, master. That is Ukraine. And Europe is the most willing of succubuses who just want to be loved, but they give no love in return. Liberalism is such a disease. It is brain rot. It is half-rotten food. So thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.